All right, so since the beginning of this year, when I started posting videos where I would discuss things, people have constantly been asking about the topic of semen retention. It's one thing to call it. I'm not sure if there's other names. That's been a common theme, reoccurring. Immediately, guys started asking me about that. And so I've gone ahead and done my own experiment. Not that this was the first time I ever did, you know, fasted from such activities, you could say, but I went ahead and went about 3 months, you know, fasting, I'll say, from because to me it's a form of fasting. And life was very busy anyway, so that just kind of fit perfectly, really. So before I knew it, I was undergoing this experiment and I was observing because I wanted to have something to say, give some good feedback if I ever did a video. So, my observations during that approximately 3 month section of time, what I noticed is some simple things like increased focus on other things, progress in various areas of life. I would say that if you're keeping your attention away from the lower physical energy centers of your physical form, then most likely you're using your energy in the higher areas of consciousness, which I was. And a lot of things sort of progressed in life in an interesting way. It very much seemed like the themes of my life that were meant to be, for lack of better words. Some might call that karma or cause and effect or like fate or something else. I'm not sure I really agree with any of those terms too much or necessarily disagree, but I would just say things that seem to be meant to be, they all sped up. And that's not just because I was more focused, because I always have a lot of focus and I always have a lot of discipline and I always work hard on whatever I'm working on. But somehow events sped themselves up in my life a lot. And so, as far as that observation, that's one thing. And then I noticed I was very serious, and it's like my sense of purpose, sense of principles to live by, and my emphasis on those, and how much what's the word? How dedicated I was to those things seemed sharper than ever. Um, Physically, I can't say I noticed any obvious difference. I've heard a lot of people talk about having more physical energy from semen retention. So I believe you. I just think that in my case, my energy is real high either way physically. So I noticed more, um, how to put this? Events in my life sped up, and one significant thing happened that I can't really tell the story or name names or anything. It's not fair to all parties involved. So I don't really feel the right to do that. But you, let me just sort of describe the context. There was something that occurred during that time that had probably been coming my whole life. Okay, but it took a lot of things concentrating energy and focus through me to finally do my part to catalyze a massive change that needed to occur for all parties involved, even if the other parties involved may not agree. It was something that was hard to do. It was something that was difficult and I had often avoided in my life. Um, you could say it involved a confrontation, and I've often avoided confrontations as much as I reasonably can in life. I certainly do not like confrontations, they're just ugly to me. But it seems that in life, certain confrontations are inevitable. So it's not something you can fully avoid. And there are key things that can occur in life due to a confrontation that you don't want to be involved in. But if you handle it a certain way, it does change your future for the better, quite likely. And it does free you up from things that you were never free from before that. So I know that sounds really vague and everything, but I'm trying to it's not about the particulars of what occurred in my situation. It's about the phenomenon of something finally coming to a head, as they say, something that's probably been brewing and working towards happening my whole life, where I had to finally get really clear on where my boundaries are with something and finally enforce them in a situation where they were, it's very difficult to do and yet necessary in order for me to be who I am, to bear what fruit I can in life, to move forward in a more powerful and effective way. Things that my ego always wanted to avoid doing, because my ego would like to just please everyone and avoid all confrontations and make everything easier for everybody, myself included, when it comes to awkward things like that. But, a key thing that really did need to occur, and I had to catalyze it, nobody else was going to do it, to sort of create a proper boundary to allow me to do what I need to do and be who I need to be in life, for whatever my higher purposes and callings are. It's just one of those things that the other parties involved couldn't understand or know because they don't have the same wiring as me. They don't have the same purposes in life. So it was really on me to deal with a hard confrontation and create very strong boundaries to things that had often interfered with me being who I am heavily throughout life. And a situation like that occurred. So, if you can kind of put those shoes on and look at things in your own life where, there's something difficult that you've often pondered doing, but it just seems too awkward, too difficult, and it's too easy for you to always avoid it to try to maintain what comfort zone you have. And yet it's the kind of thing where if you do it, if you go through a hard process, it creates greater opportunities for you to grow into who you're meant to be moving forward from that, okay? And it's the kind of thing where you may be misunderstood and you have to accept that other people are not going to see your your viewpoint and they're not going to understand your reasoning, and you may have to shoulder blame in a situation and all those kinds of things that the ego doesn't want to go through and doesn't want to have to do. The ego doesn't want to be the bad guy. It doesn't want to take other people's blame for things. It doesn't want to deal with those kinds of awkward, uncomfortable things, and yet if you can sense that a higher purpose in your own life is being held back due to your own comfort zone, due to your own lack of boundaries in certain situations, or lack of inertia, or lack of willingness to make a big move and a big change that changes everything going forward. But you sense in the higher part of yourself that it opens up what some would call like a higher possible timeline for your life, or a more accurate version of what you may have intended from a higher perspective to create in this life, or to be in this life, or to do in this life. Something really difficult like that where there's a blockage. It seems like everything in my life during that 3-month fasting period of semen retention, all these different things sped up. I didn't speed up because I'm always moving fast when I'm moving anyway. But all the other factors in my life that are always there, the pieces all sped up around me. So I was sort of surprised when I took the time to analyze what I had observed in this experiment, because I honestly didn't feel all that different myself. But the way events played out, it pushed and catalyzed and caused me to catalyze great change in my own life. Very significant change where everything is different going forward. That's what happened in the 3-month experiment. Now, I didn't look up anybody else's video on this topic. I've never listened to anybody's video I've never listened to anybody on this topic. I've never read anything anybody wrote on this topic. Everybody kept asking me, assuming I would have something to say about it. So I ran my experiment, and this is just totally authentic. Nobody's influenced my thinking on it because I didn't listen to what happens to anybody else. I don't know what people are trying to achieve with semen retention. I could guess. I don't know what people have claimed to have gained from it or have lost from it or anything else, guys. I have no clue. So this is a very pure, individual, authentic sharing of what happened to me, running an experiment and observing. And like I say, there's been other times in the past where, for whatever variety of reasons, I was undergoing a fast from such activities. I was experiencing semen retention. Every time I say that, it just sounds funny to me, but I've experienced that for very long periods of time, possibly 6 months to a year. And I'm sure there's people that have gone much longer than that. I'm not trying to claim any big achievement here, but I'm just saying this time what was different was because people were asking me to talk about the topic, and I didn't really have a lot to say. I would comment in the threads once in a while, but I thought, let me observe what happens during a period of fasting from any sort of sexual outlet related activity. So that's what I observed. Major. And for me, guys, again, I can't tell the particulars because it's not fair to all people involved and all situations involved. And it's peculiarly particular to my own life anyway. It doesn't translate to your life. But the theme does. The theme is that big things catalyzed in my life that change it forever going forward. And I came to a point of crystal clear clarity on where I stand on my own principles, my own spiritual governing principles that I live my life by. They became much more crystal clear to me than ever. And when I say crystal clear, it wasn't that I wasn't clear on them before. It's that they got to a point where I couldn't stand not living them more accurately. I couldn't stand allowing interfering energies in my life to stop me from living at a much more accurate, total, close, in alignment range with what it is I really believe, my actual spiritual principles. All that was catalyzed to the point where I was basically pushed and pushed and pushed by life events to finally make a stand, to finally establish certain boundaries, and to finally set myself free to live in a way that's really just authentically between me and God, and other people don't get to manipulate or interfere, bring that down, or dissuade or delude or shift me or manipulate me into their preferences or anything. Like I got crystal clear and rock hard and sharp on all that, guys. So whatever it is you're wrestling with in life, or maybe you like more conviction, more clarity, more authenticity, and more strength to do the things that may be misunderstood by peers and other people, but you know full well, even if it's misunderstood by people, what I live with inside of me and how I feel between myself and my creator and my source now got priority. It outweighed everything else worldly. So if you wrote it down on paper, you could say I actually lost a lot in a worldly, material, and comfort and relationship sense from the things that changed during that period. But if you look at the inner me and you look at the clarity and you look at the way life is different for me now, even though it's harder in certain ways, it's a much more accurate representation of what I actually believe and who I'm actually here to be. And this involved a complex situation where it's not black and white and clear and easy. Some of you are dealing with situations that you've been dealing with in your life for a long time, and you ponder a lot of different ideas, but you're not really sure what's the best choice because it's a complicated situation. A lot of choices in life are simple, and you just got to make the right choice or don't. But some situations in life are complicated. And no matter what you do, you feel like, it's not going to be ideal no matter what I do. So what's the best situation? Well, during this time of semen retention, which is to me, again, a form of fasting, I got the strength and clarity to make massive change, regardless of what others think, regardless of how maybe it makes no sense to anybody else. It lined me up with clarity and conviction to who I really am on the inside, just between me and God, you could say. And going in forward in life, whatever it costs me materially, whatever it costs me in certain relationships, whatever it costs me in sleep or discomfort or whatever, I'm very clear now on why I've done that and how it changes everything and allows even more authenticity going forward. So that's the best I can put it into words. That's the phenomenon I noticed by being like a scientist. A scientist, a spiritually aligned, awake person paying attention, right brain and left brain, some of everything, but really paying attention and observing everything on the inside of me and everything on the outside of me, and how much really changed rapidly in my life in a 3 month period that never really changed like this. Certain themes in my life, they were always complicated. They never changed like this. So something about the semen retention fast I did created the sort of alignment and clarity and conviction to make massive life change that I needed to make. Okay? So how that translates to you, there could be any number of ways, whoever you are out there, whenever you hear this. But again, I listened to no one else's content. I read nothing about what people are even talking about. I simply did my own experiment because people kept asking me about it. And it catalyzed massive change that needed to occur in my life. That's what happened. All right? So there's my answer finally, guys. You asked, I delivered, just out of sincerity and willingness to serve my fellow humans. And yeah, there you go. Much love. Over and out for now.